Hi, this is Mehdi,
Hey, this is Fran.
and this is Total Tactics Football. Today, Everton barely scraped a win against Fulham. Fran, how did Ancelotti set up against Scott Parker's Fulham today?
Yeah, so interestingly, of course, with Andre Gomes still out, I think Ancelotti has finally addressed his tactics and moved into a 5-2-3 in a system where Seamus Coleman is no longer present. He's opted to go for Iwobi to play as a sort of right wing back, and that this formation also works really well with Lucas Digne, who is more of an offensive fullback. And I think he opted to go for a little bit more defensive solidity with now Godfrey moving into centre back, as he didn't have the greatest of performances at the right back position. For me, what's interesting about Iwobi is that he gets to run into this kind of space that a fullback usually has. You associate that with, for example, Trent, and the more space he gets as if compared to a midfield position where a lot of the runs are much more tight and you have to make these calls, these kind of passes much faster. Iwobi now has a space to run in behind, something I think that he benefits from due to his physical capacities. And he provided a lot of work rate today, and I think it really suited James.
No, you're absolutely right. And we saw James being a lot more effective when he moved a lot more central. We saw that with his second goal when he creates the ball to Digne, who's on the left-hand side, creating the width, cuts in the ball for DCL to score wonderfully. And I feel like that's where James is very effective when he has the chance and the players are backed off a little bit. He has the time to play a pass. He moves in centrally. They've been missing Gomez due to injury, and due to that, like you mentioned, they've been using their wingbacks a lot to attack. But that sometimes they lose that a bit of control in that midfield. And when James drops into those pockets where he's able to create chances with through his vision, he's able to split open defenses. And obviously, in this situation, Fulham was really compact while defending against Everton, and that allowed Digne to just run in without being marked and able to create a chance for Decore in the second one.
No, I agree with that absolutely. And I think, Richarlison is a sort of threat that really adds to the equation, because even though he's kind of positioned as a left winger, he makes these forward runs and he always creates this sort of space and also draws in defenders, which allows Digne to kind of have a bit more breathing room. In the past few games where Richarlison was out, we didn't see the same kind of option and time for Digne. And along with that, I think you have to just give credit to Dominic Calvert Lewin. I think when the game started to go away from Everton, he still continued to be an absolute menace. He would be able to draw free kicks, waste time, try to hold up the ball with no passing options in front of him. And, when he does have the service, as we did see in the first half, he really makes those chances count. And, he's just continued to grow as a player, and it's just so fantastic to see him.
No, you're absolutely right. On the other hand, Scott Parker set up a team. I mean, they've been desperately looking for a win. He went with a double pivot of Lamine and Reed, and the usual Kearney playing as a number 10. I feel like that formation is good, but when you've got players like, as we were going to mention, who made some changes later on, the problem is that you can move the ball fast, but when you do not have the target man to target at, and your striker is a Caballero who isn't at the best quality that you need, it's really tough. And you can see the gulf of quality difference in this Fulham side against Everton. And I honestly think that in the end, there is a huge difference, and sometimes those players, individual players, can make that difference.
No, I agree. And the funny thing is, as you mentioned, the difference could have been made up with perhaps putting out the correct starting formation. We saw the changes with Mitrovic coming in, a much stronger aerial presence, someone who actually really holds the centre backs forward. And what this allows is for someone like Ruben Loftus Cheek, who's very good at kind of navigating space, finding these gaps. He was able to kind of draw a penalty kick in between the spaces left behind the three centre-back formation. I think that's something that Everton struggled with, given the fact that they moved from a two-back to a three-back. There was a lot of space in behind, and we saw that even with the Reed goal too. And what I loved about Loftus-Cheek was his ability to make late runs. In the second goal, which was clearly deserved, we see once again an Everton problem where there's no switch in terms of addressing priorities and these kind of late runs into the box. Even though Everton are so compact and they have so many bodies in the box, no one is really positioned or trying to switch onto the oncoming threat. And you can see Loftus-Cheek, he's completely free throughout the play the whole time. And despite the fact that there is a deflection, he's just given time and space to take a pot shot at goal, and it works out. And going forwards, I think you have to look at Fulham and say they really have to, I think, stick with a more traditional target man in Mitrovic. Perhaps consider playing Kearney a little bit deeper and then having Ruben Loftus Cheek in that 10 position, which I think he operated magnificently. And with Everton, I think they still need to find options or at least try to create some more defensive assignments while Gomez is still out.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think just want to add there, I feel like Anguissa, another player who came off the bench, who had a decent game, he was able to carry the ball and move. And that's something, as we mentioned, Everton kind of struggled with to stop that sort of deep runner. And he allowed to bring Robertson into these chances. And if they can work more on adding these kind of players into the first team and playing this style of play football, I believe they can cause some problems, but they need to learn from what Norwich did last year. Norwich played some fantastic football, but they just could not defend. And that was the same issue with Fulham this year. And you know what? If your defense is not tight, it's going to be a long season.